morning. Welcome to this thought for the week. My name is John Towler, and I'm a retired assistant priest in the Avon Valley churches. This morning, I want to begin by relating the fable of the eagle and the crow. It is considered that the eagle is the king of birds. It is impossible to imagine anything in the form of a bird more beautiful than he is. His beauty does not only consist in gaudy colours like the jays, nor in huge train like the peacocks, which, though nature has painted it with an exquisite pencil, must after all be allowed to be somewhat disproportioned and monstrous. The colours of the eagle are deep and a tawny brown, mottled like those of the partridge, sober yet highly gratifying to the eye. His form is made of strength and action. His eye is lively and piercing, and the sight of it is so strong that it is said he can gaze without blenching at the brightest rays of the noontide sun. The eagle builds his nest in the crags of the rock. It hangs over the sea and remains undestroyed by the most furious tempests. He is a bird of prey, and his scream is terrible to such animals as he is accustomed to devour. He feeds upon serpents, harts, hares, and various other animals, which he discerns from an immense distance, pounces upon them from his elevation in the sky, and carries them away in his talons. A hungry eagle gazed from a distance upon a flock of sheep. With his eye he singled a lamb from the number, and flapping his wings, came down with immense swiftness, seized the poor animal with his talons, and flew away with him. A crow, who beheld everything that passed, was filled with admiration of the action of the eagle. He thought he would do the same and show himself a bird of spirit. He imitated the king of birds in the sweep he had seen him take, and then he lighted upon the back of the old ram, the bellwether of the flock. Determined to do the business as completely as he could, he entangled his feet thoroughly in the fleece of the ram and then spread his wings to fly away with him. He might as well have thought to fly away with the city of London. The shepherd marked his situation. He was exceedingly sorry for the loss of the lamb that the eagle had carried off, but he was not at all apprehensive of what the crow would do. He took him in his hand, disentangled his claws from the back of the ram, clipped his wings, and turned him into the garden for the amusement of his children. There happened to be a magpie hanging in a cage by the garden wall. He looked at the crow and said, as the shepherd's children had taught him to do, "What bird are you?" The crow could not speak, but hung his head down and thought with himself, "A very little while ago I mistook myself for an eagle, but now I think I am a very silly crow." This weekend we celebrate the feasts of St. Peter and St. Paul, two great apostles of the church, two ordinary and yet extraordinary men whose various stories tell of powerful themes for our reflection: greatness, humility, the exercise of power. Peter, the forthright, headstrong and spontaneous of men, was the first to deny knowing Jesus, first to the tomb on the resurrection morning, and yet open to forgiveness, and in the end, his own crucifixion. Paul, the arrogant and yet humble of men as he journeys, emphasized dependence on God's grace, acknowledged his own unworthiness, highlighted the importance of selfless service. His life serves as an example of a driving force in ministry and personal growth. Both, I suggest, like the crow, might have hung their heads in low humility and recognized the greatness of God's grace working in their lives. And that, of course, is what they did. This weekend in our parish and neighbourhood, we celebrate with Alex Sains as she's made a deacon, along with Ruth Crossland and Vicky Semple as they are ordained priests. Great weekend for all of them. And they have our prayers and blessing. So what's the message here for Alex, Vicky, Ruth, and ourselves? Well, first of all, let's consider greatness. The disciples showed themselves as normal people. They, as a group, are preoccupied at times with who is the greatest among them. But how is greatness to be measured? Is it in terms of wealth, money, and possessions? Is it in terms of intellect? Is it in terms of those who show the most compassion? Is it in terms of which the most are powerful and have influence? Is it to be measured in terms of status? Their concern is a very human one, and one I am sure with you, which all of us are familiar, for it is one of recognition. In the time of Jesus in the ancient Mediterranean world, honor was very important. Power and status could be used to gain honors by giving benefits to those groups in a position to grant honors. Likewise, a wealthy patron, benefactors, would give benefits to a group of clients, and of course, in turn, would be expected to praise the patron and generally contribute to his honor. Now, where have we seen this in operation before, I wonder? The vestiges of the feudal system in England, which still exist. The world of the honours list swims on this process. So this hunger for recognition runs deep in our humanity at all levels of society. We all need to be recognised, to be acknowledged, for some to know that they have a right to exist in the world. From our birth, we have a normal basic hunger for recognition. We can experience this in our early years, importantly through touch. If we'd never been touched or cuddled ever, we should probably shrivel and die. Therefore, nourishing touch and being spoken to kindly are essential for our human flourishing. As a result of the experiences of our early childhood, we build up a recognition pattern. Now, many years ago, a woman called Erin Pitsey popularized the notion that women in refuges largely had received very negative recognition by physical, mental, or emotional abuse, and thus constantly sought abusive partners. I mean, a discounting recognition for them was better than none at all. To be discounted and treated as though we are rubbish and do not matter is extremely hurtful. How do we treat people? How do we treat children and young people? How do we treat senior citizens? How do we treat the citizens from other countries? And for all those people in our society who are different from us? Positive recognition is essential for all and for their flourishing. Whoever wants to be the first must be last and servant of all. This is the clear admonition of Jesus. True humility consists of voluntary and lovingly laying aside your sense of pumped upness and status and wealth and power, and behaving as though your neighbour's honour and status and power are all important. It's about letting go of the puffed up opinion we have of ourselves and giving others recognition. How some church leaders and world leaders need to hear this message right now. In fact, Jesus, in his life, turned the whole human system of recognition on its head. For he gives us a wonderful pattern of humility. I'm reminded of the Edwardian notion of children. They should be seen and not heard. How often at the supermarket checkout do you hear exasperated parents saying to a bored 3-year-old, "For God's sake, grow up"? Well, quite difficult for a 3-year-old, isn't it? How far is that from the vision of John F. Kennedy, who declared, "Children are the world's greatest resource"? Little wonder that in the context of several discourses about who is the greatest and the nature of humility, Jesus should lift up a child, as he says, "I welcome them in my name. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me." The mystery of God and our future vision is presented to us in a child. This is the model for our humility. This is the model for our greatness in the world. So how are we measuring up as individuals and as a parish in this neighbourhood of the Avon Valley? I have 3 observations which are not exhaustive. The first has to do with an arrogant certainty which I find prevalent both in church circles and in world circles, which I feel need tempering. I was listening to a scientist talking about neuroscience, the science about our brains. It was humbling to hear him saying how little we knew about our brains and how they work. It was a lesson for me in the art of tenderness, a cautiousness, a sensitive holding back, a lesson in not knowing. For the mystery of our world and of our God is unfathomable. The second is to do with how we honour one another. It is something about practicing respect in how we talk to others and about others and how we behave towards others. It's about holding rein on our prejudices, honouring all races and religions and especially minority groups, being careful not to diminish one another in our wider community of nations, for the mystery of God by whatever name dwells in all his people. To those of us as to his modern day saints and apostles, he offers us a share in the work of bringing about his kingdom here on earth. And finally, practicing being childlike. And again, for this to use some powerful words from the Abbe Michel Coyste's meditation. God says, "I love youngsters. I want people to be like them. I like them because they're still growing. They're still improving. They are on the road. They are on their way. But with grown-ups, there is nothing to expect anymore. They will no longer grow, no longer improve. They've come to a full stop. It is disastrous. Grown-ups think they have arrived. I like youngsters because they're still struggling. But above all, I like youngsters because the look in their eyes. In my heaven, there will only be 5-year-olds, for I know of nothing more beautiful than the pure eyes of a child. It is not surprising, for I live in children, and it is I who look out through their eyes. I had this wonderful experience last weekend as I met my great-grandson, Freddie, and looked into his eyes. The mystery of God looks out through the eyes of a child. Well, perhaps we also should beware of confusing ourselves as eagles when we know that we are really crows. Thank you for listening.